So finally, what I'd like to do is just a really simple little project to show, what we've been talking about, kind of a recap of them and bring them together. Let's just do a wall, the standard kind of, wall with a window in it. So I'm just going to grab a box. Okay, let's copy parameters and paste that in the center. Multiply that by 0.5, and that will keep my box on the floor. And then I can give when I make it bigger, it will stay on the floor. Okay, 0.3 and thickness 0.1. So just kind of like a thin concrete wall there. And then I'll make another box to the right of it and just leave it as it is, but move it up 1.5, just kind of halfway up. This one I could copy. Yeah, let's do that. Why not? Copy this and paste it here, and do times 0.5 as well there. So that will give me the same result, but it's procedural. I can change the size of this wall now. And then let's grab our old friend, the bowline. So I need the old bowline here because I'm going to use 2 of them. Okay, so here I will, on this side, I will do a intersect, and that will give me the window. And on this side, just leave it at default, which is the subtract, and that gives me the wall. Okay, so there we go, wall and window. I'm just going to transform this window to make it thinner. Okay, so scale that down to 0.2. And then let's group both of them. So this will be wall, and this will be our window. Window, okay. And then we can merge them together since we have these groups. Okay, look at that beautiful piece of modeling there. So now ABD material fracture. Okay, plug that in, and we'll start with the window. So now that we have these groups, we can just kind of daisy chain all these ABD nodes all the way down. It kind of keeps it nice and tidy. We got the constraints, the main geometry, the proxy geometry, later on the colliders. Everything, just comes down together in one neat kind of daisy chain, as they're called. So plug that in. It is a bit slow, this node, but it's worth it because it's super useful. So to this window, so we want glass for the window. I don't know, let's just do 2 points in there. You can play around with the seed if you don't like the placement of them. Other stuff along here as well. I'm not going to play with it. Let's add chipping, why not? So we get some nice smaller pieces. Okay, and I'm going to turn off this apply glue constraint property, so it will give me the constraints. But when we want to come back and play around with these values, we'll have to come back up here, and then everything underneath this node will have to cook again. So if you just want to change the strength, you have to come back up, and that's kind of annoying. So turn that off there and then do it. You'll be given a group, and you can do that later on. So we've got window there, so we don't need to write it there. Let's grab another one of these, and then let's change this to, let's set it to manual. Concrete, grab the wall, plug that in. So we need all 3 now. So we have the main geometry, the constraints, and the proxy geometry. Okay. And then let's see the results of that. Oh, before I change, actually, I'm going to add these. So fraction namespace. So we'll just say on both of them, window. Just kind of gives you a group, and to the name attribute it puts window and general, not fracture per piece, and I think it creates a group as well. So it's just handy to do that to reference it later on if needs be. I'll do the same with the wall. I think these groups will be carried through anyway, but it's just always good to have that available. So we got the wall. Let's do maybe add more points here. And if you just add another layer on top, the difference between this is scattering more points in this fracture. And then the further down here you go, this will scatter 5 points into the pieces that are already there. So we'll take this piece and fracture that up, and that way you get intersecting kind of pieces like that, which you don't get with just a normal Voronoi. Okay, so let's turn on the edge detail and the interior detail, and again turn off the constraint properties. Okay, so we got all our fracturing done. We can again do the I'm going to add another to this. I'm going to turn off the noise on the first one. There we go. So we just get a bit more of a general. Let me add some more here. I just wanted to fracture around the edge a bit more. There we go. Okay, that's okay. Yeah, so again, we can take a look at the ABD exploded view. So there we go. We can see our proxy geometry, our high res. Well, it's not high res, but you know, the geometry with interior detail. You can also, this is cool. Let me see. Show the constraints as well, so you can see how they're constrained together. So this highlights what we need to do next, which is to build constraints between our glass and the walls. Okay, so let's turn that off so they're not spread out. Do ABD. ABD constraints from rules. Plug that in down there. And then we'll do group to group, and we'll have hopefully wall and window. So you can see you've got all other options here. You can use the name attribute. That's really handy sometimes. You've got all these other groups that these things generate as well. So you can see in gray what's being connected up, and we've got new constraints. We'll give them, these constraints, their own group, which is connectors. You can see that's normally what this is used for. Okay, and we could do it here, change that. So let's do it, yeah, we'll do it here. Surface points, and I want the concrete to also be surface points. Okay, so I'm going to do ABD convert constraints. Okay, plug everything in. I think what you can do, by the way, since I'm plugging all of these in, is do, if I remember, shift click. No, it doesn't work. There's a way of connecting them a bit more efficiently than I'm doing now. But to be honest, it doesn't take that much time. So the wall constraints, I want to change them again to surface points. You can see what that does. Okay, you've also got this faces, which I think connects all of the primitives that are along the face. But yeah, I just want surface points like that. Now let's give our constraints some properties. So ABD constraint properties. Okay, so we'll have one for each of the sets of constraints that we've made, right? So we'll have connectors. We'll do connectors and the wall together because they'll be similar. Normally I wouldn't do that, but just because this is a simple example, and we'll make them, you can give them a color. Oops, and I'll come back to this in a minute, and then we'll do another one for the glass because the glass will be behaving a different way. So I'll do that blue and change this to the window. Get rid of those. So obviously the window will break very easily, so the strength will drop down super low to like 10. Connectors in the wall, maybe like 100. I don't know, we'll come back to that. And I do want them to switch to soft constraints after, which may seem strange with concrete, but it is nice to have a little bit of flex, and sometimes, you know, to have it bend a little but break fairly easily, not, you know, obviously not bouncing around like springy, but to have a bit of flex. Then sometimes at the end of the simulation, you've got some pieces that are kind of bent away. You know, that it's not just on the wall or off the wall on the floor. It's nice to have a bit of kind of bend in the fracture. You get some, and then maybe you get some pieces. You can see the cracks coming up as well. so we've got that. We need to configure this. So abd configure, plug that in. We'll come back to these properties in a minute probably. And I want to set the active attributes again there. We'll use bounding box. I'm going to raise this into the middle. So that was like 1.5. Again, you could probably do this procedurally, but I won't. Let's make it not wider that way, a bit wider like that. Oops. I'm gonna just stretch it out slightly, like that's probably fine. And then there, just to grab the middle. It's kind of annoying me that I don't have, that might open up, but no, we'll see. We'll see what happens. So yeah, that's fine for that. Again, you might come back to play around with them. With the collision shapes, let's grab an ABD bullet solver, plug that in. Let me see, yeah, that's one way of doing it quicker. If you press tab, ABD bullets, so once you grab it, you can see it's kind of just under my mouse. I haven't clicked it. If you do that and then click, it connects them up for you. So it's one way of doing it quicker. Grab a ground plane. So, you know, this shouldn't do anything now because there's nothing, you know, unless your constraints are really light and it breaks under its own weight, it won't do anything. So we need a collider, so I'm going to grab a test geometry and we'll use just the pig head, I suppose. Okay. And let's make it a bit smaller. And I'm going to visualize it here because I want to animate the pig head. So drop a transform underneath. And yeah, we need that templated there. So we'll start, let's see, over here, 2.5. Let's raise it up a little, 1.5 to the middle of the window. Let's rotate it round 90 degrees, minus 90 degrees. Okay, and then place a alt click to get a keyframe there, and then move forward, let's say 50 frames, and then move him to about there. Let's see, get a nice round number, 0.5, alt click on that. Okay, so now he should pass through. So if we go to, that's something else we haven't spoken about, guided sim, but I'm sure will come up in another simulation. So let's see now. So collider's not moving, so go into collisions, set this to deforming static object. See, we got this convex hull, so it will be, you know, around the ears, but it doesn't really matter in this simulation. Okay, so we're getting something. We got glass breaking really easily, that's good, but obviously the concrete is flexing around in a strange way, which doesn't make sense. I'm going to make him a little bit bigger as well, maybe 0.65. And then if we go into our solver here, go into constraints, breaking thresholds, soft, you can see this, we've got a soft constraint. We want the breaking threshold to be much lower. It's based on the changing, there we go, so you can see them actually breaking there, that's cool. You see the constraints here, so they're still really too long for concrete. You see as they get stretched, they break and then kind of fold around. Okay, well that's actually not too bad. There's still a bit kind of bouncy there on the left. It doesn't make sense. Maybe, you know, it can be good for doing kind of rebar effects when you have metal in the concrete. Wash it without thing, that looks cooler. And then what you could do, so for the soft constraints, we could just do it in here. Can make them stiffer. Let's see how that looks. There we go. See, it's got a bit of spring to it now. It's resisting I'm trying to go back, but that's too stiff. What I would do is drop it down and push up this damping ratio, so that stops it being springy, stops it trying to return to its former shape, and just it'll just stay in its new shape. Something like that. Let's let it break easier again, I would say, like 01. Something like that. So that way, you know, you get cracks like this opening up, and you know, we'll get pieces holding together. We could use clusters with this as well. It's a bit of an error there for some reason. Again, you know, it's worth kind of playing around with shapes here. It can stop pieces from spinning around on the floor for too long, and which is kind of a typical problem. You know, we'll get pieces settling much quicker now that they're in a box shape, but you know, you can't really notice here that the shapes are maybe there, but depending, all depends on your, you know, the camera angle, the simulation itself. Are you like this? Is it super fast and short? Can you afford to simulate, you know, the resolution? There we go. So yeah, you can again play around with these values all day long, and that is kind of the job, you know, playing around is getting this setup going, and then endlessly tweaking strengths and different things until you get something that you like. But there's your basic setup.